Oh boy, let me get the sip of this coffee, get the picture off the screen. Oh my goodness, we are off the ground in 2023. What is up, my friends? This is the Protect Your Neck podcast. I'm your host, Dan Tom, analyst whose work you can find over at MMAJunkie.com, as well as Action Network this year, as well as I'm going to be trying to use their app there for tracking. I'm going to plug that and give them another proper shout and plug here in a second. But yes, on this year program, the Protect Your Neck podcast, we break down high-level MMA, and that's what we're going to do here today in my own weird way, as I tend to do. So hopefully you're listening to this, hopefully before the fights, recording this Thursday night. We're going to get down to it. I'm going to give you guys, as usual, what I got heading into the weekend. Whether it's biases, fights that I haven't done full homework on, all the usual that I'm honest and upfront with. I will, of course, be forthcoming with you heretofore. Thank you guys for giving this video a like, piling into the chat. I'm going to get this tweet out. I actually composed it a little bit ahead of time, which is probably why I'm a little bit late. So it's a give and take over here. I don't know if you guys were placing bets on if we're going to go like 5 years in a row, I think, with... Hey, happy 6-year anniversary. Woo! We're going to go 5 years in a row without being on Stitcher and SoundCloud, and you guessed it. I haven't had time to even cut my hair since before leaving for Hawaii. So, no, I've not had time. There's been a lot going on. Of course, MMA, which we will touch on before pushing into the breakdown while we're all here. Got to touch on what's going on in the scene because it has not had any chill in 2023. I've been doing some projects in between and stuff for Junkie, and we're working some things out, with the fallout included in between. So we'll do a quick update. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Feel free to update me, say what's up, pop questions, all the usual stuff right down in there in the chat. And if you're digging the show, which I just appreciate you being here. But yes, if you are here, if you're a madman or woman, feel free to give it a like. Subscribe to comment and contribute to the show as well. Share it out. It's always good. At the PYN Podcast on all social platforms. You can find me at Dan Tom MMA, which I forgot to put up on here this screen because I'm good like that. Let's see. Hey, there I am at Dan Tom MMA right here. I gotta do the creepy thumb, Dan. That's a weird way to point. Mark Fellows, my man, good to see you in 2023, my friend. What is going on? Here's to a bigger and better 2023 for DT, me, and everyone else. Yes, for you and everyone else. I appreciate the love you guys give me. It's more than I deserve. I feel selfish at this point. You guys have been spoiling me. Again, niche audience, but a niche hardcore audience full of just hardcore good peeps, and that's all I could ask for. That's all I want. I would take this... don't get me wrong, money be nice. I'd say see you guys later for some money. No, I'm just kidding, but, all the stuff that tends to come with money and the pollution of power, as we see and all that stuff, guess it's not my speed. But, more money would be nice, but, man, I could not ask for more better listenership. I don't have fans, I have listeners. Quote Anderson from the Film Vault there. But, goddamn, you guys are... cool motherfuckers. Cursing warning is up. Hey, what's up, Dan? Samuel Negrete, hope you are well in 2023, sir. Gonna give this a share, and I'm gonna roll in. Thank you guys for rolling in and just showing love and all that stuff. It is fantastic. Gotta navigate my way through the YouTube pages like the boomer that I am, and I'll share this and we'll be good. At least I don't gotta type this out. Hopefully you guys, if you're not Jewish, anti-religious, or whatever, if you're a Santa person, a Christmas person, hopefully Santa gave you all the gifts you wanted this year. I'm going to thank you guys for clicking through the feed to support this here free show here in a second as I get the link out so we can get some more people in the party. Thanks for giving this a like again and hitting the subscribe. We'll be getting the hashtag UFC Vegas 67 here shortly. And we're going to be going from top to bottom as per usual, and I recap my picks and plays at the very end. If you're in a rush, And just, I think it's good to have a recap. I feel like sometimes I'll listen to a whole show and be like, I don't even remember what they talked about, much less what they picked. Sometimes that happens. So I recap at the end, and again, I don't blame you if you don't want to listen to me or agree with me or whatever, or just find me displeasant. But you like my analysis, you can go to the end there and cheat the system and deny me the analytics. So, if you're going to do that, at least hook me up with a like. Fair trade. So yeah, a like or a share, those things are always appreciated. Again, never expecting you guys to agree with me on picks, much less personal views or anything like that. That's not what this show's about. It's about me being me and giving you what I got, and hopefully it helps you. And hopefully we have some fun on the way. That's really it. Just something you learn about MMA game, folks, is you learn to keep some low standards there. So we're gonna get into it. But yeah, thank you guys for the shouts. Yeah, hello, and what the fuck, 2023 is what I have written here. It's pretty crazy. We had no chill, so I have this section up, and there's a bunch of stuff that's not even on here since we last spoke. Gambling shadiness, which encapsulates multiple things. The James Krause situation that was already in motion since I last spoke to you guys, right? But more has come out since, and even just as of today, just before going live here on a Thursday on the 12th of 1/12, January 12th, even more stuff. Apparently, Krause was working with offshore sports books. Not good. And then saw some quotes from, I believe it was one, Jeff Molina. As far as leaving his version, I guess what you would imagine a book blurb, but was doing that, I guess, selling the Discord and oh man, just incriminating stuff. So it's tough scenes right now. And then, of course, which I'll get to as well. I guess related to my house, because he was a colleague in one of the houses I work at. No longer, by the way. He parted ways, I guess, before the S hit the proverbial fan, as it did. But more for the people in the gambling Twitter hashtag. Manpreet. I've never had him on this show or done a podcast with him. He did mention, to invite me on sometime coming this year. And man, I heard what most of y'all did, just as far as his track record was nice dude, seemed to do pretty well, in his spots. I don't know about his overall record of last year. Maybe it was bad now that I think about it. But me, that's not how I necessarily judge somebody, more the character. And as far as the character side, guess no one saw that coming. I hope he's doing the right thing. And from reports, it sounds like it. I don't want to get into the weeds too much because I honestly don't have the details. I was catching up late, so I was already late to the party. And B, I'm not as involved, thankfully, because boy, it was craziness, because when that stuff happens, good people get their name drug in it unfairly. But that is the space that we're in, and those of us who've been in this gambling space, especially MMA space, either one really, you should understand that these are the dangers out there. And there's a lot of times where I do it because I'm no better than any of you guys folks. It's a human nature thing, so perhaps it's not a good thing, but perhaps we all do it from time to time. We look at someone else or this or that, and we're like, oh, how does this person have this, or and then maybe you think I need to either, if I can't beat him, join him. And I know, that I am leaving money on the table by not having a Patreon still, and not doing engagement things, from engagement tweets all the way to contests where people are engaging with their money, right, and everything in between. I'm not really an engagement guy, unfortunately, for a lot of cons as well. I'm not bumping my chest here. There's a lot of bad this does me, right? But I guess silver lining to some of the things that I complain about, or people complain to me about, because a lot of people are in my corner and want me to do better, and have given me some legitimate suggestions for Patreon tiers and ways to still provide free content like I've been doing for over half a decade now, folks, at least in this year podcast. Thank you very much. Going on year 7 or 8 at Junkie, year 8 or 9 or something total or something like that. Anyways, but free. And even though I beat myself up, I look at, all the scams and all the stuff going on out there. And, hey man, again, you don't have to like me. I'm not right. I'm not gonna guarantee you shit. I'm just gonna give you honestly what I got, like I have been. But and again, you don't gotta like me or the picks or anything in between. It's all good. It's all good. But there is a reason why I am. Part of me is proud to be giving content and upholding honesty. And even with the insider trading stuff and this and that, like there's a reason why I've been telling you guys since day one that I don't put myself or people I know in this industry, from coaches to whoever, under jeopardy by asking the stuff that would be considered inside information. I've always stayed away from that. I always avert my eyes and try to even avoid training times, even though I'm well trusted, and keep things inside the gym. There's just these are the reasons why I've preached these things through the years as well, folks. And I've given examples of it. I know other good gambling podcasts in the know. Again, shouts to Paul Shag and CJ Safdie, the Dogger Pass podcast, have talked about this as well. That like inside information is not even that. I mean, unless you're doing outright really shitty things, most of the stuff that we deem as inside information that you could realistically attain from being in the presence of, let's just say, a gym, an MMA gym, or a boxing gym if we're talking boxing, so on and so forth. Especially in combat sports, especially with MMA and the way it's structured, most of these guys bet on themselves even if they are hurt, and will still win even if they are seriously hurt sometimes. So there are so many times that I talk about, again, other podcasts talk about, where you could have known certain things and it only would have hurt you, because again, these fighters most of the time they bet on themselves, which is the one thing that I guess is okay on any kind of a moralistic or legal term. I know things are changing now, no betting at all. I get it. I'm not trying to say that. You get what I'm saying here, though. So yeah, man. So it's crappy to see this stuff, but people ask me like, "Oh my goodness, are you surprised?" Like, because again, like I'm not jumping on the negative train and piling on even the situations that have affected me. Some negatively, like the Krause one. It's affected a lot of people negatively, so it not me playing a violin there, right? Perhaps some positively, you could say, right? With a news that's news to you guys today. Back to the seed I planted earlier. Shouts to the Action Network, who, we had Manpreet doing the co-main events, and he was doing a fantastic job. I think he had, like, if you judged his record by the co-main events last year, the dude killed it, I think, as far as those go. Again, not speaking to his overall, I don't know that shit. But yeah, I was grateful enough to be able to be given that opportunity by Dan and the people at Action Network, who I'm super grateful for, because as I've alluded to with you guys, like I need all the work and help from that side of it as I can get, and as mad as we can get at the industry and this and that, there's just some really quality people in there that seem to always be in my corner for whatever reason. So definitely thank you to all of them. You guys know who you are. So again, I'm not going to cry because some's negative, some's positive. I just want to acknowledge this because I think it's important to acknowledge these things, even if they don't surprise some of us, right? And just thank you guys for, not that you guys can see, but also figure that, I don't conduct myself in these ways, so that way I, despite all the crazy mudslinging that's going on Twitter, I don't know, I haven't really had too much thrown my way, which is nice, I guess. But what bums me out though is that people deserve their money and don't get it. Thank you guys for the help with the MyBookie thing. That was resolved. Got my bills paid to me as well, in that sense, right, from all the houses. So thank you guys for that. And for what it's worth, I did go back to that thread and other people that were sharing their stories, and I went and I liked and tagged MyBookie and said, thank you for helping me. Now, can you please look into this person's? Again, I don't know if anything ever happened. I didn't hear any follow-up from those people, but for what it's worth, I try to keep that same energy. And rounding back, before we push on to the breakdowns here and tying kind of a bow on the gambling things, I think I still follow. I think I still have a follow for like Manpreet. And if you haven't seen me like jumping on, piling on, even if it was like deservedly so, it's not because he doesn't deserve it or it's not right or whatever. Like, more than welcome to do that. I don't have any connection to the guy. I don't have anything like that, so it's definitely nothing. I'm trying to protect him. Back to wanting people getting their money, though. I feel like if I, especially not someone super visual, but more visual, right, in the space, start getting on that and just like blackballing, making the dude feel even more blackballed. I feel like, if this makes sense, folks, I don't know if I'm making sense. I feel like that'll only make somebody run away and not come back and make things right. And I want the dude to make things right. Regardless if you want to forgive him or not, I don't give a shit about that. That's all up to you guys. I just want the people that are owed money to get their money. You guys know me. It's kind of my thing. I don't know if that's social justice warrior or whatever. I just like seeing people get screwed, man. That's all it is. So I'm gonna keep that same energy as best I can and wanted to acknowledge that, right? Because a lot of things go unacknowledged in the space, and I get it. I get why people get mad at that. We also had Bonner. That was really sad, man. And I'm not gonna get Sean Strickland on you guys, who we'll talk about here in a bit, but I dare say I could understand the sentiment. Do I agree with every word of anybody, much less a Sean Strickland? Of course not. But I understand that sentiment of everybody pretending to care and like it's a surprise when those of us in the know, and I'm not even someone in the know, and even I knew the guy was having hard times, man. I saw him, I saw him like multiple times in this career, like when he stopped doing commentary as much and wasn't fighting. It was like before he even signed back on with Bellator, right? It was that brief period between Silva and Bellator, and I was working at Whole Foods and cashiering part of the time there, and I remember seeing him coming through my line occasionally, and just real quiet. It looked like just like I got like the real retired like dad vibes from him, just like real. Just looked well-to-do citizen. No one was really noticing him, and I don't like giving people attention or doing that awkward thing or much less at a place of work or the gym. Those are the places I do at least. But I just did like a real casual. Oh, how's it going, Stefan? And you could tell he did them. Like he was almost surprised someone knew his name. I'm like, in my mind, I figured he would, maybe out of the spotlight for a minute. Maybe he kind of lost that muscle for it or whatever, and just super just not that he ever came off as a super crazy ego or anything, but like just super cool dude. And then you fast forward, Bellator stint that ends, tries to do pro wrestling, however many back injuries this is. Could tell he was having substance issues with something, because he came in the studio, MMA Junkie Radio, back when we were still doing that in the studio with Baroni. And they were doing pro wrestling, and like even like a fight when I cornered my guy Rodney James opposite of the guy in the UFC right now, Josh Quinlan, who's KOing everybody. They even like that ex-MMA show or whatever here in Vegas that I was cornering, like during their intermission, like Stefan and Baroni even did like a pro wrestling like skit during the intermission. But I remember even before that in the studio, I don't know if he'd been up all night, and that was part of it too, but man, he just did not seem well. And as a guy who's always been a fan of Stefan, because I was a tough noob, folks, that's where I came in. I was aware of the sport from the late 90s or even mid 90s, but as far as when was I actually honestly following it, being honest with you guys, I was a tough noob is when by the time I actually got familiar and committed to being a fan of this circus, right? And yeah, man, that was just it's just sad when you see it. And the guy clearly needed help, and I don't know the situation. So, but yeah, obvious condolences. And I don't want to, I didn't want to be heavy-handed and do like anything performative or be considered performative, because I get it. But I just wanted to share that, and again, it ties into also shouts to Victoria Lee, gone too soon, and I don't know the situations on that. I'm not going to dare speculate, but again, let's just go back to the Bonner thing per se. This ties into a lot of the stuff that I'm not gonna be a Johnny come lately like Strickland was calling people out with the Bonner thing, but inside my defense, something that I keep the same energy on, folks. What do I say year in and year out, right? I said it before I saw you guys last year. I said this is the time of year it's really tough on people, even people you wouldn't think it'd be tough on, if that makes sense, as cruel as that sounds. But you know what I'm saying, the least you'd expect. So you be sure to check in on people and make sure people are doing all right, in your life and stuff. And it's really important, man. It's really important. Of course, we had the Dana White slap. Jeez, I mean, check in on your life, check in on your wife. I mean, oh my goodness. I mean, who's the victim here? Jeez. Between the comments, obviously the comments are despicable. You guys don't need me. I shouldn't need to be getting on, and I'm not getting on any high horse, because you shouldn't need to get on a high horse to say you don't hit women. I know, crazy. But again, MMA, man. MMA, whether it's a dictator, a sex trafficker like Andrew Tate, who's been proven to have done this stuff. Dana, I get, he's been an icon, this or that, I love Dana in the early days, man, especially following him and this and that, and being here in Vegas in the industry, and whether I was valeting, parking cars, working security at that Stone Temple Pilots 40th birthday he had back in the day. Him and his wife were trash then too. They were a lot, thankfully there was none of that. He tipped me in a bunch of money, and I bought a PlayStation with that, and I share that story, and everybody has these stories of Dana. And that's a great way to get goodwill. And it could be a tactic people use. I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying that regardless of what you speculate, the man has obviously changed in many ways, and not for the better. And yeah, man, I think that a lot of people right now, I'm not going to get too hung up on this. I know a lot of my colleagues are, they're either going off and just, really railing into it, or shying away from it. Obviously, I prefer people talking about it and acknowledging it is huge. I mean, if me, a dummy who doesn't follow sports, but every time somebody like a Kyrie Irving does something, somebody who purposely tries to avoid news and other sports and doesn't care, I feel like I'm always made aware of every domestic abuse, whether it's Kyrie Irving, the Ray Rice in the elevator. What was the other NFL guy where it was against the kids? And we're not even talking about back in my day where I grew up, and that was a little more normal. Not that it was right. I'm just saying it was sadly a little more normal. I'm talking about semi-recently, mid-late aughts. Peters, some guy. I forget. Why are these names stuck in my head? But when, a really important president, all of a sudden it's bad for the media, or it's bad for the MMA media to report on the MMA president, when any other athletes and all these, pick your situation, Again, same energy. So you guys should know where I stand on that. I'm not going to beat it with a dead horse. I shouldn't have to beat it with a dead horse. But yeah, man, whether, it's Dana, which, again, not right to defend him here, even by his own words, by the way, not right to defend him, which is another crazy thing. But I understand the Dana fandom more than the Tate fandom. The Tate fandom I don't get. This dude's the biggest poser. Except when it comes to actual things like he's being accused of. Yeah, and, and shown proof of. So, dude, it's just, can MMA just chill? Can we just stop, gravitating toward terrible people, or people doing terrible things, or terrible people doing terrible things, or any of the combinations? Can we just chill on that? Because I'm going to try to and focus on the fights here in a second. I know, thankfully, we got Aldo helping Bolsonaro over there stage a coup and, take money, and his wife involved in something, taking money from the poor. And she would have got away with it, too, if it wasn't for you meddling leftists, according to her. So just craziness. Anthony Rocco assaulting cops apparently right before he's about to give the goods on Kayla and Ali. What's going on there? We got Jake Shields versus Mike Jackson. I don't even want to. Yeah, that's just. Oh my goodness. Hopefully they can go get paid and not, do it at the PI if that's what those dudes want to do. Yeah, man, it's been freaking crazy. That's since we last spoke, folks. So, positive news. Action Network thing, 6-year anniversary of this podcast. Yay! But man, there's just been some craziness. So before I move on to shouts, Amazon read, and the breakdown, I'm just gonna clean up the chat to see who's joining us. We got Dan Urban in the house. By the way, shout out to Couchside Judges. I loved that 10-7 episode. We talk about the 10-7 a lot. I sullied my 10-7 information on my last Stop By podcast, the only one of last year, with Dan Urban's co-host Scott Fontana. But yeah, man, their 10-7 episode was really good, and I will say, Dan, I think that I don't want to do any spoilers because there's really great information everyone needs to go listen to, but I believe I said this publicly on this podcast and to my fellow media compadres like Dan and Scott that I believe that it is important to have the language in there of deeming on when a round should be stopped, and they actually go through all the 10-7s, unanimous 10-8s that could have been considered 10-7s, and they go through all these different scenarios. And again, I'm not going to do a spoiler, but I would argue, again, we could talk about language. I know Scott, his co-host, is a language guy. He's better at the language stuff than I am. Always can improve the language, surely, but I do believe that's an important metric to have, and I think that episode kind of proved me right there, but more importantly, gives you a better understanding and landscape and history of the 10-7. So please go check out that episode and give them a subscribe, man. Couchside Judges. It'll balance out whatever your thoughts are and this and that. It's good to have thoughts to bounce off of. Yeah, we all need more money with these pay-per-view prices going up. That's for sure. But I definitely do not want to steal from anybody to get that more money. Ghost Phantom in the house. What's up, Dan? What's going on, Ghost Phantom? James Kendrick. Truly bad people coming out of the woodwork to show they are bad people supporting Dana when he said it's inexcusable. I mean, that's the funny part is the man himself, said it's inexcusable and say what you will about his connections in the media and say what you will about the lack of punishment and his acceptance of lack of punishment. He's getting out more in front of it than the people that are defending him, which is just kind of blows me away somehow. Usually it's not like that. Rain Lamina, the Bobby Green of me and Keith Jardine, the Derek Minner of having a Drew P. winner. Dana White is the champion of slap fight, blames it and his wife. I lost you there, buddy, but yeah, I don't know. I will not be watching or covering that, though. Surprise, surprise, folks. Congratulations, Rosen. Does the silly start of the year remind me of the political nonsense that your colleagues decided to ignore to support their beloved Rose? I mean, we could do mental gymnastics, to be honest, and parlay that across to a lot of things and a lot of criticism on the media. But I think that, whether we're talking about the Stephen A. Smith media, or smaller time media, and I mean that respectfully, but it's just true with people, and I'm well within and low on that totem pole, by the way, within that space. But like MMA media, yeah, I mean, you could see, money talks. I think is something that we didn't. Again, these are things that shouldn't surprise us. Not to sound like dour and cynical, but here's a media news flash, folks. Money talks or money silences, right? I mean, money doesn't just talk, it also silences. So it depends where you're in line with money. And I get it. I am a part of the media. We just talked about it at the top of the show. That's not the only time I've had colleagues that do stuff that I and you or the general we have disapproved of, right? Heck, I've even been super critical of my colleagues and said some really passionate things on here in past, around that time a couple of years ago, right? Who was that? Kumbopoulos Rosen, was that? But yeah, so it puts us in funny spots. So part of me does have a sympathy, for some, right? But it's... I think it should be clear to you guys, right? Kind of what things are. So, as much as I complain and struggle and pull my hair out about being an independent contractor, it would be nice to have benefits for sick time and more vacation time, although I do get some from Junkie. Thank you very much. Or these traditional benefits, if you were, the dentals, the vision, all those things. Oh, yeah, I wish I had the vision. I need new glasses soon. Of these things with a full-time gig, but with a full-time gig comes a lot less freedoms, right? And that's a given. And if you're just working at, Joe's Pizza Shop or whatever, which is totally fine. Believe me, I would love to work at a Joe's Pizza, a mom and pop restaurant, part of me, and just tune out of all this stuff. It's fine. I'm not dissing on that, but I'm just saying, at least your politics, work politics are confined to that one thing. But instead of Joe's Pizza Shop, it's a wide-branching news media outlet that covers a pretty big section of things. A little tougher, right? So yeah, sorry. All right, Rain Lamina here. The James Krause of Bet in the House. Oh, easy. And okay, we're not gonna read that part. The Rain Lamina, he almost got me. Congrats on 6 years of the PYM, my man. Only started listening 2020. Got me hooked ever since. Thank you, Ghost Fam. You've been a great addition to the part of these shows, to be honest. So I appreciate it. Define grappling damage. Yeah, I agree. They need to define grappling damage. That's something else I've talked about as far as metrics. And as much as I complain about all of our own inconsistent kind of things where we kind of choose to highlight grappling on certain parts, if, to Dan's point, that he actually makes really well and stomps on really well, I agree with, by the way. Speaking of language changes, if they define that better, something I've been championing for too, as far as metrics for grappling, that fits under the same thing Dan's talking about. But yeah, definitely think we need that. All right, shout out to DLoves_turmeric_tonic on Instagram, theturmeric.tonic.com. Use code PROTECT15 for 15% off. That's a friendly affiliate. Really good dude over there, so I just wanted to give them some love. Real quick, Amazon reads, and we'll be on to the breakdown. I know it was a long intro, but we didn't have a recap, so we're kind of getting to it, to the breakdown, to the normal time, and we won't be too long on the breakdown. Knock on wood. All right, of course, this is a free show, like I said. That being said, there are ways to contribute. I believe the Super Chat is up, so if you want to donate, it doesn't matter, as you guys can see. I got great rapport with the chat and read off your guys' stuff regardless. There also is a new thing I believe called a Super Thanks. So even if you're not catching this show live, I believe there should be a Super Thanks option somewhere around the window if you want to tip the show. Or maybe you don't want to tip the show, like, okay, all right, glasses, McSchmasses, let's see how your picks do first. Maybe I actually come through for you this week, not that you should be blindly tailing me, by the way. You should use my analysis, take what you like, discard what you don't, a little Jeet Kune Do there, if you will. But if you're feeling generous and I helped you, you can always come back and do it that way. If you don't want to do it through a secure PayPal link, which not only can you find on my Linktree at DanTomMMA on Twitter, where I'm most active, but mixedmartialanalyst.com, the website, my website, the sports this year program, that's mixedmartialanalyst.com. You go there. Not only do you find a library of the shows for smartphone-friendly players, for those of you complaining that we don't have Stitcher or SoundCloud yet, I think I'm going to have to just outright pay someone to do it for me, folks, to be honest. Stay tuned. Or jump at me if you think you're that person for that job. But you will find, if you go toggle to the right down, you will find Amazon on it, click through, as well as a secure PayPal donation link. So multiple ways there. Multiple ways to support the show. That is free and will remain free and has been free for over half a decade producing content for you. Speaking of those click-throughs, the On It stuff does not list what's getting bought, but the Amazon one does. Now, it does not give me your personal information, so if you want to do a little David Carradine, that's right, it's 2023, I still haven't dropped it. You want to have yourself a little David Carradine one night in Bangkok, if you know what I mean, right? No one's going to judge you. You want to buy the silk gi? The non-irritable rope, the vibrating nunchucks, however you get down in Pound Town. I won't judge you. This is a judgment-free zone. All are welcome here. Just make sure you click the link. I will pontificate on your purchase. Perhaps make some inappropriate jokes because I have the maturity of a 9-year-old. But there is no judgment here. No one will know it's you. That's mixedmartialanalyst.com. And we're going to go see what people bought. Someone bought a Bosch & Lomb Boston Advanced Conditioning Solution. Alrighty. Awesome. Hopefully it conditions well. I'm really bad with knowing about the hair stuff. Everyone compliments my hair, but you'd be surprised how often I wash this bad boy. Dan, why are you outing yourself? Somebody got Blue Buffalo Life Protection Formula. Natural, adult, small breed, dry dog food, chicken, and brown rice. Ooh, nice. Okay. Got a doggy there. Pet lovers, always welcome on the show. Thank you very much. Someone got Black Adam in 4K. Is that the superhero movie where The Rock comes in and makes everybody wear terrible shoes? Just kidding. Someone got Bissell Honey Blossom No Rinse Dog Shampoo. Okay, yeah, I think we had that. Read that. Dario Cello Turner, Cello Tuner and Bass Tuner Eclipse Headstock Tuner. Thank you for buying that piece of equipment. Appreciate that. Somebody bought 4K Rocky the Knockout Collection. Wow, that wasn't cheap because it's the 4K and it's the collection. Wow. Does it include bonuses like Rocky talking about his my sexual escapades with Mickey? Everything got a little cloudy after that, and I just damn, what version of Rocky did you watch? I don't know, but maybe it's on there. Thank you for buying that. Nexi Go controller for Switch, Switch Lite, OLED Bluetooth. Okay, that looks awesome. Love those OLED TVs, by the way. Somebody got 4K Maverick. I heard that's good, by the way. I heard that's really good. 4K The Northman. I watched that finally. I enjoyed it. So Willem Dafoe doing crazy stuff. I'm always down for that. I saw a tweet. This girl was like, going to see The Northman, and let me state that I'm going solely for Willem Dafoe doing weird stuff, not the white supremacy, which I thought was hilarious. But I'm not, I don't know. I don't know how much Viking is in me or anything. Clearly, I more of a drunk Irish peasant probably, because my Caucasian blood, most of it. Although I thought it would be Italian, only very little bit of that, and Irish and Nordic in there. But yeah, I don't feel like any of those dudes. Although I appreciated the mushroom scenes, I probably feel like a lot of things if I got on that level with those dudes. I really enjoyed the movie though for what it was worth. I'm not a film person or anything like that, so you should not really care about my opinion too much, honestly. Groundhog Day, 30th edition? Has it really been that long? Wow, 4K. Thank you for buying that. Energizer 123 lithium photo battery 12 battery pack. Switch Mini Pro controller wireless for Nintendo. I'm guessing that was the Nexigo person who bought that. So thank you very much for those of you who clicked through. That helps. And I want to put, I believe there's an On It sale right now. I think everything's like up to 50% off right now. Probably because they want you to go to the gym and be the new you and go seize the day. Oh, damn, why are you making that weird voice? I don't know, but if that's your thing and you like their stuff, yeah, you could kick somebody back to this podcast at no cost to your own. Just use the links, mixedmartialanalyst.com. All right, finally, we're going to get to the breakdowns here. I don't know if they'll ever define non-leveraging shots, but you know how to get my buttons going, James Kendrick. Makoto Kayagoku, want to get your opinion on this. If a fighter has repetitive habits and still wins fights, is that fighter objectively a good fighter, or is that bad fighters that don't know how to exploit the spam? I would go with the latter, and I don't want to be reductive or disrespectful, and I know that falls under that. And if I had time, I'm sure it wouldn't actually be too hard to come up with a bunch of examples of that on multiple levels, including high levels, where fighters can get high level, especially in not as deep divisions, until they're figured out. And once they're figured out, they kind of remain that way, right? So the more test is to see how they are once they're figured out, regardless of success they find in that initial run that you're talking about. That's just my opinion, of course. Who cares about that? I mean, obviously you do, and I appreciate you, and some other y'all do. You know what I mean? It's just my opinion. I'm not reading this from a book of answers. All right, 38.50. UFC Vegas 67. UFC Imavov Strickland was supposed to be Gaslam Imavov, which would have been interesting. I don't know. Maybe I still, maybe I would have ended up on the favorite still, but spoiler alert, I guess. My breakdown's already out at MMA Junkie, as well as a co-main betting write-up at Action Network. Appreciate you sharing and checking out both of those. But yeah, I think the number, I don't know how long that opener lasts, but they opened it pretty wide. Like, I would have been tempted on those Gaslam dog odds, regardless of pick. Though it sounded like Gaslam was working through a myriad of injuries till, he got that final mouth one. So, perhaps it is good. And even though, again, I don't know how good, because, The UFC matchmakers, man, they just love themselves. I don't know if there's any heavyweight on the fights on this card or on the main card, but they love themselves featuring light heavyweight and middleweight fights. So middleweights at light heavyweight, they're just like, they're probably still, coming down. They're probably still in refractory mode, if you know what I mean. Well, why have Dan Ige or Damon Jackson on there? These reliable lower weight guys. Nope. Let's. Anyway, sorry, folks. No heavyweights on the main card because there's no heavyweights on the card at all. And again, because they love having middleweights on the card, we'll get to Puna versus Kopylov, third way down, but it's Sean Strickland, Dan Ige, Puna Soriano. They trying to kill my guy Eric Nixick here. Like, I know the Strickland one was impromptu, but they were already going to put fucking his two Hawaiians back to back, and kill his warm-up organization there, possibly. No, not really. There's plenty of good people. You got Gifford on the pads, who I imagine will be warming up Ige while Puna is out there and already properly warmed up from Eric. And we'll get to this fight right now with Strickland and Imavov. Obviously, regardless of my picks, which I don't always, I won't today. See if you can figure out which one, if you haven't already. I won't always pick against Extreme Couture fighters, but I will always state my inherent and admitted biases, as small and as negligible, to be honest, for the most part, as they are. But we can say that we have no biases. The truth is we do. Again, hopefully you didn't consider it a waste of time, but the reason why I took so much time to talk about all that stuff in the beginning, because acknowledging things is important. It's the very least we could do. Danny Betts, what's up on getting on? Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I think I saw some love from you on Twitter. I appreciate that, too. I'm still getting back to messages on there, my man, but I appreciate that, Danny Betts. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Already got my man Drake Riggs. Yep, you got his opinion as well. All right. Let's see. This is related, so I'll answer this one. It's related to Strickland Imavov, which we're on. My apologies in advance, Ghost Phantom 98 says, for the negativity, but I am not looking forward to Strickland parrying jabs with his hands down by his nipples while he stands on one leg leaning back. Yeah, UFC has not had enough of them, though. They love them in main events. I want to quote my man Fenyo again, which you guys, listeners of the pod, know where I'm going with that. Although I will say reformed technically, but yeah, UFC loves a certain type, right? And Strickland's a madman. He doesn't train traditionally. Maybe that'll help him here. But like, it's tough, man, because lest we not forget, he's coming off of a 25 battle with Jared Cannonier, who was attacking at all three levels, so the legs, to the body, and the head, right? 25 minutes, win or lose, right? And I didn't study that matchup in depth, but the pick I submitted to Toutmaster was Cannonier, and even though I was right, I technically scored it for Strickland, but it just was by the thinnest of margins. I could have gone either way. It was one of those fights you can't be mad literally either way. It's not a cop-out. It's just one of those fights that's that close. Yeah, man, I'll be honest, I'm not too excited for this one either, but I am looking forward to hopefully seeing more from Imavov, and I think Strickland's a great fighter for that, because he is durable and hard to hit and hard to deal with, for the most part, with a lot of fighters, and I just don't know what condition he's coming in, right? It's like, not only for picking Strickland or picking this fight, but even predicting, probably is going to go over, but is it? Like, not only is Imavov shown to flag sometimes in 3-round fights, but again, we don't know what kind of condition Strickland is coming in, according to social media. His social media is the dude's been out of state or back home in California, working on his boat, up in the mountains, it's supposed to be snowboarding this weekend. It's got a bunch of stuff going, Is he just, racking up getting a nice payday to compile on, and really just start himself off really nicely to end the year, these nice paydays back to back. Got some contract incentive, as well, maybe a bump in pay. I ain't hating, man. Get what you can, but we don't know these things, right? Whereas Imavov, say what you will about his potential cardio, he was training for the 5 rounds. And Imavov, who I've said this in past Imavov breakdowns of mine, where I think part and parcel of the reason it'd be interesting to see him in these 5-round fights is because I think he cuts a lot of weight. He's a really big middleweight. He cuts a lot of weight. He's a sizable dude. And now he doesn't have to cut the weight, though, because Strickland coming in last minute, they moved this to 205 pounds. So you got a guy probably in the best shape of his life preparing for a main event showcase at 5 rounds. Now he doesn't have to cut the weight. I mean, he's going to be prime as ever. You know, if Imavov ever has a chance of going late, being able to win late and or, win a 5-round decision, even though this is his first one, maybe this is his best window. All these things contextually considering. As far as the matchup goes, I think the directionality is going to be interesting. Both guys have been pushed to the back before, but Strickland more traditionally has that gear where he's circling and countering, and he's much more content and comfortable and operational from there. For all any perceived flaws you might want to say about that style. Whereas Imavov has actually gotten much better at taking initiative and pressuring and taking center. So I expect the directionality to be in Imavov's favor for this fight. He seems to have a good feel for range and distance and some good initial first layer head movement, and can use that off countering when he really feels and is rolling and feeling his groove, so to speak. But because he has low hands, he is not beyond getting countered with a hard shot on the way in, kind of like what from the rear hand, kind of like what we saw Strickland look like he dropped Hermanson with, but it was more of a slip. And conversely, on the back foot, when an exchange is extended, he will kind of get pushed to the back foot to the cage in a straight line a bit. And again, with the low hands, Imavov that is, he'll be open to shots there for when Strickland wants to blitz, if he wants to get more aggressive. I think he could find success there. Being said, Imavov has a decent jab of his own. He moves well off it, and he also hooks well off it. He looks like he's got some decently heavy hands that you really could be kind of getting the feel for. And maybe we see that even more without him having to cut weight. Maybe that's even more of a thing, right? Seems to be really getting a feel for himself. Do I think he has the highest ceiling in the world? Am I buying that forge in the fires of Dagestan? Like, no, he's an MMA Factory France fighter. He's got that French Muay Thai swagger more than anything that you see from his stablemates, like a Cyril Gane, maybe, a little bit of that swagger. I will say he's really good in the clinch as well. Natural feel for it as far as framing for elbows and knees. Strickland is no slouch in the clinch. I think he's criminally underrated wrestling-wise. But as far as scoring and staying active, it should be Imavov so long as he doesn't tire himself out doing so later in the fight or isn't compromised in some other fashion, right? Like, he should be the way more active guy there. So I think Imavov's kind of tendency to crash in the clinch isn't necessarily a bad thing. What I do wonder and worry about, though, back to the gas tank, is wondering how much he'll parlay that in the takedown. Sometimes his natural kind of in and out coming in, he'll kind of crash in the distance, and he'll keep level changing takedowns in his back pocket that he usually doesn't get, to be honest, and usually will just use to drive his opponents to the fence to either control, work, get the takedown, or strike there. I guess what I'm wondering is how much he'll be trying for those takedowns, how much effort he puts in to set takedown looks, even for the ones he's using to reset. Because I think he could run into trouble there trying to out-wrestle Strickland. Really, outside of Kamaru Usman, no one has really out-wrestled Strickland at either of his 2 stints at middleweight for the most part, and welterweight, again, outside of Usman, right, which is understandable. So, again, Strickland quietly underrated there. So if Imavov, if Strickland looks decent and he's pacing himself, like I suspect he will, because he does when he's preparing for 5-round fights, I imagine Strickland's going to prepare himself if he doesn't. Or pace himself if he doesn't. So if Strickland's pacing himself and letting Imavov tire himself out, and Imavov's kind of running into a wall, he's not getting close to a finish, and Strickland seems okay, and he's wrestling a lot, you might want to look at that Strickland line live. I think all the value here is on Strickland. That I'm not saying anything crazy here, folks. With my bias, that's that the market's saying the same thing. That's why that dog number didn't last on him for long. So a lot of the value, like we'll talk about in the next fight, has been perhaps bet out. You might want to look at betting him live if you like the American side. I, on the other hand, officially steered away from my extreme couture bias, and I picked Imavov, and by decision, which made me even more reluctant than I already am on what's a semi-reluctant pick to start. Again, I just think that Strickland, if he paces himself, he doesn't really get out of second gear, which might not tire Imavov. And if he paces himself even further, worried about gassing out and opening himself up, then perhaps Imavov that'll either just open Imavov to either get the finish, which is a possibility depending on what condition Strickland comes in, and he's very durable, very tough, but we don't know what condition he's in, right, folks? This isn't, think about how excited even though I picked Makhachev, but I'm a big Bobby Green fan, and all these guys who took it on short notice and are veterans and this and that, we get excited and we build these cases, and that's what these promotional videos and the promotion wants you to do. But at the end of the day, how often do these short notice stand-ins really do well, even on the higher, more proven levels? It's not often, man. And as much as it'd be, great to have my home gym take another W, I got to try to be honest here. Otherwise, what good is my word as an analyst? What good is my word here? I got to be as honest and evidence-based as possible. So I'm going to go with Imavov by decision with the possibility he can get a finish, but betting value is and was, I believe, on Strickland. Perhaps some live opportunities. And throwing a million jabs and parrying off it. Yes, Ghost Fan. Yep. Let's see. Let's see what Rain Lavin has got this time. The Max Holloway of boating on a bay when confronting pictures of Dustin Poirier. Don't be silly. Jump the ghillie with Yuri. Oh, my God. You guys are funny. Okay, next fight, Dan Ige. What we got here? Let's see. Oh, by the way, the odds. Sorry. Excuse me. Imavov minus 130, Strickland plus 110. Okay. Plus money back on Strickland depending on where you look, but you know what I mean. Over options depending on what round overs they offer. I don't hate, but it's not something this is not a fight I'm rushing to bet. Next fight, broke this one down via the Action Network for the betting angles. Dan Ige minus 125. Damon Jackson. Walt Goggins, baby, plus 105. Jackson actually opened as a minus 160 favorite. Ige opened plus 140. The market was quick to correct that. I'm bummed I missed out on that. But now, as I said in my article, despite my pick, plays and biases, the betting value, to use that dreaded word, shouts to Joey Odessa, is trending toward Jackson now, obviously. Now, if you can find Jackson at plus money, you don't got to make an argument to me. I won't argue with you. If you want to use the value argument, it's right there. The guy opened minus 160. You now get him at plus money. It should be, no matter how you cut it, it should be a competitive fight on paper. Unless Ige, who is the more likely of the two, gets an abrupt and early finish. Should be a competitive fight no matter how you cut it, right? Totally justified and totally not denying that. I guess I'll just say that I still ended up playing Ige. I got some of these plays in just before because to reorganize some house stuff and whatnot. I think the article is minus 120, but being straight with y'all, I got 1.25 units for minus 125 on him. I still played it. You don't got to follow me off that cliff. I'm obviously biased. And I believe that if you do like Ige, regardless of my bias or ways that I'm going, there's a better way you can get a better line, which perhaps is live. Win or lose, Ige always gives up. It's traditionally the second round, but it can be the first, and then he'll win the second. It's kind of like he'll lose one and win the other, regardless of how the fight goes, win or lose. And again, win or lose, he does this, and it's going to be a competitive fight. You're going to sweat either way if you play this, especially right if you're following me playing Ige. You could just not expose the 1.25 like I did to win a unit. Maybe expose half the amount and still win a unit or more by waiting for a possible plus number. If, let's say, Jackson gets him down in round 1 or even 2, and Ige you're fairly confident he got round 1, or there's a decent chance he got round 1. He's going to rally hard. Then maybe you go look over the live lines, see what they're posting on Danny Ige. Maybe you want to take a little sprinkle and a little flyer. Again, it's a competitive fight, and a lot of the value has honestly been bet out of it. I don't think there's any denying that, no matter which side you're on. Maybe not the Jackson side. You've got the value now. You know what I'm saying. But essentially, I like Danny Ige here. Like, they have a lot of the similar, different styles, but they have similar weaknesses. They're going to have a tough fight if they're not the better wrestler. And they are both susceptible to uppercuts, body shots, and anti-grappling upward strikes. Ige a little more obvious with his stature and his style, but Jackson more so because he really headhunts and shells a lot harder with less footwork and defensive movement. So body shots, uppercuts, and left hands seem to be something that's really open for Damon Jackson, and that is Ige's MO. Whether it's collar tie left uppercuts, shifting left shovel hooks, left hooks, straight up uppercut hook returns from orthodox, left hooks from orthodox coming forward and off the counter, and obviously all the body work that Ige has been religiously doing that unfortunately went overlooked in fights like this fight against Emmett, which was deceptively close. You can actually make a real good argument for Ige winning that. That's not my bias speaking. That was a close fight. You look at who he's facing, future title challengers like Emmett or Evloev, right? Guys that nobody want to face, whether it's the late stage hard hitting big gorilla like Emmett or, the no-name undefeated wrestling Russian. So you got to look at that 0-3 skid versus that 4-0 skid coming in, right? Which is probably what the lines seem to be set off of, right? Not that I can't see a world where Jackson opens as a slight favorite, but again, keyword maybe slight favorite, maybe like -115 and 105. Although to be honest, I feel like it should at least be Ige open -115, Jackson 105. Anywhere upwards of that would have been fine. I mean, not too wide, obviously, but I'm just saying I still don't think they got the favorite right. But I'm just saying that wide, you almost wonder if they were basing the matchup off of that. Now, Jackson is in the small cage where his style really thrives. He's a really good grinding wrestler. Most of his takedowns are against the cage and from the body lock. Jackson's got this really reliable tools that he uses. Or he'll get the body lock and he'll do that inside hip, like kind of Khabib will do variations of this too. Sometimes, even though he really liked it from a single, to be honest. But he'll get his hip deep inside. Once he's got the body lock buried, he'll angle his hip deep inside, like in between like your crotch area, almost lifting your leg off and getting you off balance, and will snap you down that way. And you'll either snap down or you'll take a heavy step forward, which will allow you to get a kind of rear angle that will allow a Polish, kind of chain you into a Polish throw variation, where you're getting, Usman does it all the time too as well. He changed the deals. 1, gets you to step, and 2. Sometimes you can do that and play for that second move there. But yeah, Jackson, you could tell he just goes to the same one all day. Macy Chesson, I was watching her versus Pennington before we got on here. And she looked like she was doing it in that fight. I'm like, oh yeah, she was training with Jackson as well. And shouts to 47 May, by the way, Gym of the Year article that I released since I saw you guys last, as well as my prospects article. Big shouts to all you guys who shared that, and special thanks to those who helped me with that. But yeah, Jackson has those tools, whereas Dan Ige, he is not beyond being taken down, and you'll see rounds, again, like I pointed to with the live betting, where he will give upwards of 4 minutes even of control time in a single frame. Thankfully, those aren't on the back for all of them. I think maybe the only one is Korean Zombie, which, again, that's Korean freaking Zombie. And the fact that he was in all those bad positions and wasn't submitted by Zombie is somewhat of a feather in the cap. Obviously, one of Ige's probably worser showings, and he didn't win the fight at the end of the day. No delusion there. But I am saying, I do believe that it is a feather in the cap, I mean, you look at what that guy did to Edgar. Granted, Edgar was compromised, but hey, he messed up Ige with a flying knee in that fight too, and still couldn't get him out of there. Ige is just really tough to get out of there. So even if Damon Jackson does land that up front kick that he landed on Sabatini, a shot that on paper actually could be very effective against Ige, you got, again, just because he's never been stopped doesn't mean he can't poke. Just because he's never been subbed doesn't mean he can't poke. This could very be it for Ige. Maybe he gets stopped. Maybe he gets subbed. But the guy's proven time and time again, against a lot of different guys. Top shelf guys, by the way. Top shelf finishers even. Dominant fighters, everything in between, that he's a hard guy to finish. So that, plus the fact that I know he was overtrained. It was a bad matchup that he probably shouldn't have been in. It was a big underdog for a reason against Evloev, but he did make some wrestling improvements that shouldn't go overlooked. Worked with a lot of Russians on this camp. Stayed more local, but worked with a lot of American wrestlers. Really been hitting the strength and conditioning. Really looks to be in the best shape ever from what I can tell. I'm only seeing what you guys are. I have, again, as per usual, no inside information, nor would I give anything that could be conceived at, going off of stuff that's publicly accessible, going through my own tape study and research and work here. It looks to be in the best shape of his life. Eric Nixick, if I'm seeing things, that Eric Nixick's going to see things. He's a great game planner in that corner. So it's going to be a real interesting battle on that end. You got two coaches I obviously respect. Coach Saif Saud in one corner, and then you got Coach, obviously I respect, Coach Eric Nixick in the other. Two good gyms, great gyms going at it. To be honest, it was a 2-horse race between those two. To be honest, for the award, because my bias aside, I have to state my bias, which is why I mentioned them. But also, they were nominations: Extreme Couture and Eric Nixick for coach. Like pretty much all the other categories for a reason. I think they legitimately had a case. But I always have spoken with respect about Coach Saif and Fortis, so it shouldn't be a surprise that I kept that same energy and acknowledge them for what was a good 2022. Great matchup here, folks. I'm really excited for this one. Played Ige minus 120 to put my money where my mouth is. If I can't find anything, maybe I put the over in a round robin. But honestly, I'm a little bit scared of this over too. A little bit more playable. A little bit more bankable in a way, because both these guys are dogs who are going to fight for your money. Both are tough dudes. Over would be a great way to hedge, right? Whether you want to not pick a side or hedge / potential bonus your side with an over. I'm not going to tell you not to. I don't want to spend the money for that kind of thing right out of the gate to start the year, folks. It's volatile. And again, I've got bias lists, even though I'm betting some of these fights. Not the main event, but this one and the next one, perhaps. I mean, I don't want to get too crazy with it, right? With anything, obviously, you want to show some control. So the pick is going to be Ige by decision. But I actually wouldn't be surprised if he gets an early knockout here with the body work and then the uppercuts and the left hook. So watch out for that. It could be an early knockout, but I'm going with Dan Ige. I'm kicking for coverage, playing the money line, and I will give Damon Jackson, Coach Safe, and Fortis all the respect and public love like I continue to do if they win. So no issues there. All right. No Bangtao MMA gym for Coach of the Year. Whaley Yuri came out of that gym. Yeah, Bangtao was going to be one that I put honorable mention for. I don't think I got around to it, and I was looking at them for the award outright. But you know what? The tough part about the Bangtaos, the Tigers, you got guys like Volk who go to like 2 other gyms. Whaley who still jumps around at other gyms too. She's got her Black Tiger home gym. Right, I don't know how affiliated she is to Fight Ready, where Yuri has also went. And I love those coaches too as well. So I definitely want to try to find a way to give them shouts. But again, if we're talking about actual credited gyms and this and that, it got narrowed down to XC and Fortis for me, according to those things. Punahele Soriano minus 155, Roman Kopylov plus 135. By the way, I got to figure out how to do the YouTube timestamps that people like as well. I want to try to do that. I don't know if I need to freaking just pay someone to do that or someone to teach me to do it once and then I'll update it. But feel free to hit me up if you know how to do it, if it annoys you. Maybe learn how to do it and hit me up and maybe we'll figure something out. Thank you. But yeah, Punahele Soriano minus 155. Kopylov plus 135. Obviously, I like Puna here. It's going to be interesting. I did the Southpaw report before I jumped on here. Kopylov 0-1 against UFC level lefties. That's Carl Roberson. He pretty much ate a lot of leg kicks and left hands. Which leg kicks can happen, obviously. You get the same stance look, but left hands is always that quiet one. And we have a hard time defending it as southpaws, when we get in there with another southpaw, it's one of the weirder shots, is just the power left. It's just the weirdest feel. Because not just defending it, but even throwing it feels weird. Because you throw it and it lands so easy, but you feel so damn vulnerable. It's like a mind fuck. You're like, that shouldn't have been that easy. I was too vulnerable. I'm not going to be able to land it again, do I? And whether you go 1, 1, 1, 2, or maybe even just a naked 2 sometimes, like, you would be surprised the success you have throwing your rear hand as a southpaw against another southpaw. And Roberson figured that out. I also wrote down here left hands, leg kicks, and cage position. I don't really like Kopylov's cage position. He can get pushed back way too easily. And he's too content there. And I know he's been working hard on his wrestling, and defense to scrambling has shown small improvements, sure, as he should, working with, dudes in Dagestan. And he did look like he worked a bit on his fast start and initiative on his last fight against DeChirico, but DeChirico also looked like he was sitting back to counter too much and knew he did, and made an immediate change. And despite, getting rocked by a bunch of counters, Kopylov's defense is so pretty vacant, as you could tell by his nose, that, again, stats don't mean everything. You guys know I'm not a fan of stats, but for what it's worth, like, DeChirico is able to close the gap in significant strikes and tie him in the second round, despite still probably losing it in my book, right? Although he was winning it toward the end of that second round, which was kind of ironic if memory serves. I did go back and watch this fight, but I've been watching a lot of fights this week, folks, as you imagine, so forgive. But yeah, against a fast starter like Puna, who, it's no secret, it's no inside information. Go look at Tavares, Puna, Ige, all these guys. They know how to mix in leg and calf kicks really well off their lead hand. It's something Eric, Sugar Ray Cepho, Sugarfoot, all the coaches, Nate Pettit, Gifford, all the coaches be drilling into the fighters, you know what I'm saying? So you got to imagine Puna's going to know that that's going to be there. When it comes to is the left hand going to be there? You bet your ass it is. That is Puna's main weapon. He is just kind of a detonator, and he's got a big thing for finishes and first round finishes. So against the slow starter, I like it. Kopylov is really tough, folks. He could survive the first round. He could survive the fight. He could win the fight. Puna is not beyond being leg kicked himself. If you look at the Dalcha fight, Dalcha switches to a leg to southpaw randomly toward the end of the first round, I want to say. And he actually surprises Puna and takes him off his feet, right? Like, Puna hasn't faced any UFC level southpaws, but go watch his fight with Dalcha and Jamie Pickett. They're orthodox fighters, but they do show some flashes of a southpaw stance that's interesting in that fight. Both actually are able to surprise Puna. Jamie, I think it's more of an off-balance thing, and it's a random strike off the break. So I don't know how much southpaw, how much just surprise, how much just... I don't want to disrespect Jamie Pickett and say, oh, it was a lucky shot or anything, but again, how much of that also is the fact of, is that Puna having trouble against southpaws, or is it the fact that he was training for orthodox fighters and the first time they went to southpaw, they were able to surprise him? Because if you look, whether it's the leg kicks after that, I think Dalcha may be able to hit him with 2, maybe 3 more that are partially checked, because Puna actually starts getting a beat on it after that. He starts withdrawing, partially checking, and or countering. And even with Pickett, both of them, in fact, the finishing sequence come when both Pickett and Dalcha, granted Dalcha just threw a kick, but there are some good looks that Puna has when Dalcha does show the southpaw stance before that, but for what it's worth, ends up finishing them both, I believe, when they're in the southpaw stance, albeit briefly, albeit coming down from kicks, so forth. The point is that there were some interesting looks, and I would argue more positive than negative, especially being that Puna got the last word in those fights overall, and specifically within the exchanges where his opponent was flashing a southpaw stance. So, again, who knows? Kopylov's still young. He can maybe show some adjustments, some improvements, and maybe we see that the southpaw stance is maybe a terrible matchup for Soriano, but there's a ton of southpaws to train at from guys like Ankalaev above his weight class to below at Couture's. If if my dumb ass is saying these things, I know his team is seeing them. So I actually really like Puna a lot here, bias aside. I think that he slowed down genuinely in that Pickett fight because, Pickett has proven like he's got one of those styles where he's kind of just avoiding damage. Not like Strickland. They fight different styles, but like Strickland in the sense of can be very annoying to fight. And that was his first fight going out of the first round in his pro career almost 4-5 years ago now, right? First time in front of Dana White on the Contender Series, etc., right? And he gets labeled off, I think, as gassing in the Allen fight, which is just a bad look, not having adjustments and taking massive body shots. So I don't know how much it was him gassing in that fight. I think it was more just him not adjusting. It was a really bad look, not denying that. But the real bad look, I think that he gets unfairly bad looked, is the Nick Maximoff fight. You guys already know what I feel about that fight. By the way, speaking of fights like Danny Sabatello, right, that are getting judged like it's by Doug Crosby, like it's a 2009 fight. 2009 scoring in that fight, right? Went to MMA decisions. Sure enough, Doug Crosby, baby. Doug Crosby, 30-27, I believe, or some bullshit score or whatever for Maximoff. Just horrible. Fucking horrible. And again, he slows down in that fight, but he slows down because he pops his knee in the first round. That's why he slowed down. It wasn't gas. Puna looks like, from water work, conditioning, weights, everything, cardio. The dude looks like he's been really working his conditioning. Just an insane athlete. I took Puna at what is a discounted line because he actually opened minus 170. I thought more money would come in on him, but money is actually coming on the Russian who's traveling. He's not even doing the transplant. I trained at American Top Team thing. He hasn't done it before, still hasn't. Not that that makes a difference. Not that there's obviously not great talent in Dagestan. I'm just saying for what that's worth. The man is traveling. Money's still coming in on him, though. So I took the discounted line. I know I'm biased, but I put 1.55 units for a unit return to kick for coverage. But I don't know if this will be on my prop squad if I don't find anything else, but it does qualify. Even the round one, depending where you look. If you just want to take Puna in round one a shot, I think you could find that north of plus 300. But I took the plus 450 number over there on Bet Online for Puna round 1 KO. I just put a quarter unit on that for over a unit return if that hits. God willing, both hit, right? And then we're I think we're up on the night, depending if I add anything or not. We will see, folks. Again, obviously I'm biased, but I did go through and do the homework on this one, and yeah, man, I really like Puna. I really feel like I'd be making this exact same bet if I didn't have the bias that I do. All right, next fight. Ketlin Vieira minus 120. Raquel Pennington plus 100. Just finished taping this one. I always do this with Raquel Pennington. She goes against some physical athlete, like someone big for the division, whether it's big like tall and physical like Chesson or large and physical, however you want to put it, for Ladd. Who else did she fight? That was very physical. Obviously, Nunes is another level. Kianzad, very physical, who I'm very high on, by the way. So that was an impressive one, albeit that being one of the closer fights of her recent ones. Renault, older but physical is her things. And when I look at it, I'm like, oh, these girls can make it ugly and this and that. And Kianzad showed some of that with her clinch savvy, underrated again. Obviously, that's Chesson's game and Ladd's game. But what I'm always reminded of is Pennington is how she just has, we think about her boxing game, which is great, and we'll get to that in a second. It's for her division, right? Is that how difficult she is to deal with in the clinch, and that even when people do score takedowns, most of that control time, it usually comes within the clinch. And again, she can be a slow starter a bit. She can relinquish a little more time than you or even her corner would like in that first round of the Kianzad fight. But if you look at it, she's really just getting her feel and quietly getting the better of it with the body knees that are, again, even when your back's up against the cage, those body knees are super heavy there. Again, Adesanya Pereira, right? Like I preach about these things all the time, and they can be real momentum shifters. And they were in the Chesson fight as well. Just for more off-the-top references of that body work, baby. And Pennington works the body from the inside. She hooks off her jabs and changes the levels of the hook to the body or to the head. Again, knees in the clinch. She's really hard to deal with in there. And even though everybody was really, that was one of the more butthurt decisions of last year, which I found odd. Like, I understood the O'Malley and Jan, something like that, much more than I understood the outrage of Holm versus Vieira. And I bet Holm, folks, in that fight. And I thought, maybe part of me thought I would get some good karma, being like, again, I'm once again not using the R word. Dan Tom does not use the robbery word. And, even though I could have jumped on the train, which was oddly loud for Holm, I did not, folks. I did not. And I'm like, you know what? Because maybe part of me thought, I'm sure this just means I'll have some good close decisions come my way in 2022. Sorry, Hans, wrong guess, but it's okay. I'm not being negative or salty about it. We left that in 2022, folks. Hopefully we can actually get a little more of those in 2023, which would be nice. More of the right ones, the ones that are on our side, I should say. But yeah, I didn't feel too strongly about this one. I did feel, though, however, stay on target, that Holm could have made much more of a difference if she did more strikes while she was in the clinch. She was making sure she was scoring from those positions, right? And that is something, again, even when Pennington's back, which you don't want her back to the fence, but still, even when her back is to the fence, she is good about, even when her opponent is also trying to strike and or actively score takedowns, like Macy or Pani or even Aspen, right? Whereas Vieira, one of the things that made me hard to pick her against Holm, if you go back and read my analysis, is that, which I had to go refresh myself, is that she's just kind of lackadaisical. She's a little too opportunistic for my liking. It's not that she doesn't have the athleticism, is that she doesn't use it as consistently as a Nunes, nor do I believe is it even on the Nunes level, right? So I actually am going to go with Pennington here, and I'm not alone, and the dog money is closing. She opened at plus 120. You can still find plus money. I just laid a unit. Again, folks, speaking of close decisions that tend to not go my way, they tend to be female fights, usually in the strawweight division, which, again, if you listen to podcasts like the Couchside Judges will tell you, that is where the most discrepancy happens amongst judges. That's important information for you bettors. You got to know what you're getting into. And albeit this be bantamweight, not strawweight, I am willing to guess, I'm sure Scott or Dan could correct me, I am willing to guess women's bantamweight is in the top 3, if not for sure, in the top 5 of most contentious decisions, or split decisions, right? So to speak. So I know what I'm getting myself into. We could be getting ourselves into the classic Dan Tom. We're picking the more experienced fighter, the more technical fighter, the fighter with the stylistic edge, the fighter that works the body and even the legs more, right? We know what this is a recipe for. We're making that classic mistake of picking the better fighter who probably should win and maybe will outright win without getting the actual decision. And so I'm not going to cry about it. I know what I'm getting myself into, folks. You don't have to follow me off that cliff, but I did get Pennington for plus 105, 1 unit. That's all I'm going to do. Maybe if this is a real slim picking card, it's not sexy, the number or the pick, but maybe I throw Pennington, if I don't like any other dogs, in the round robin just as a money line, And I'll probably throw Puna KO, which isn't a great line. You're only getting like plus 120 to plus 150, maybe max on it. But again, that'll probably be in the round robin. I don't know what else will be. Spoiler alert, folks. I didn't go much deep past this fight, so hopefully the rest of this breakdown and show will be short. And again, at Dan Tom MMA for Fight Day, where I share my quick picks and prognostications article, where you'll see if I ended up picking the minus 900 favorite, Umar's coming, over Heoni Barcelos, and what other plays I have. You'll have to, again, go to at Dan Tom MMA on Fight Day, where I post all my picks and my plays for what I end up coming up with, including what ends up on my prop squad. Maybe it's that Puna round 1. Maybe I find something better, something sexier. Who knows? You guys do know that I am transparent. My analysis at least connects to something, whether it's right or wrong, and I put my money where my mouth is, whether it's right or wrong, and for better or worse, mainly worse, I'm honest with you guys. The very least I can say that, which is the point I was trying to get through earlier. So yeah, I got Pennington here, who's, by the way, training with like top talents like Miranda Maverick or Lucky Lauren Murphy. So some really good training stable down there in Denver. Elevation. So let me clean up this chat before we push on and cut through the rest of the card. James Kendrick, I know Ige trains with Nixick, and Jack Slack said this, but he continues to come into fights with bad game plans, which is weird since Nixick is a smart coach. Disrespect to Ige, since he's super talented. Yeah, I've heard that criticism for some Ige fights too. I definitely can't defend that Korean zombie performance. But again, and not saying this because it's Eric Nixick, but like it doesn't matter who's in there. It could be my guy, could be your guy, could be anyone's air quotes guy in the corner. It's ultimately up to the fighter. You can have the best game plan in the world, and it doesn't matter. It's you can make the adjustments and give them the technical advice. If the fighter's not going to do it, or if they can't do it for whatever reason, mental trigger, physical trigger, injury, whatever, like there's only so much you can do. So it's great, when it goes through, and Eric definitely takes the L. He definitely doesn't deflect it onto his fighter, so I'm definitely not trying to deflect for him or any other coach. But I have said this with other coaches in my defense, so I am keeping that same energy and encourage y'all to do that. Yeah, you're more than welcome to have whatever opinion on that. I've heard others, aside from Jack, have that opinion. But yeah, I don't know. For Ige, I feel like, to me, honestly, I feel like he's overachieved from expectations that I initially had of him. So maybe it's that, including the whatever extreme couture bias is there. He's not a guy I know, I text, I hang out with. So none of those biases are playing into my analysis here, folks. But yeah, there is an inherent bias. I don't know. I see an improving fighter. That Bektik fight was a really good one. You look at the adjustments, you can tell they had a good game plan, anti-grappling strikes, certain things that you're hearing both broadcasters and other teams kind of use similar language, and it's stuff that he the same stuff he was credited with Ngannou doing. I've seen him use similar game plans and the same languaging with Ige before those Ngannou performances. So I guess I would encourage people to keep the same energy with that as well, but to each their own. Ghost Phantom, if Damon Jackson likes to dip, as you say, shouldn't the one body from Nix's system work nicely for Ige? Absolutely it should. It absolutely should. Again, there's no way that Nixick or most coaches wouldn't see what I'm talking about here. Again, forget Nixick. I just feel like this is a more obvious opening. And Coach Safe, in return, is a smart coach who, again, you're going to tell me Coach Safe can't predict, where they're going to go and doesn't know his own fighters on top of that? I'm sure he does, but if Damon Jackson goes out there and shells like he always does in fights and shows some of the body openings and uppercuts that he's always shown in fights, are you really going to go and blame Coach Safe for it? Like, again, not, they win as a team, they lose as a team. I'm not saying no one should not take accountability. That's not what I'm saying. But, I mean, how much, at the same time, how much of the blame are we really putting, on a coach for fighters being who they are, is what I'm saying, no matter the team, right? So, defending the opposite side there, hypothetically, as well, to kind of prove my point a bit, to help that. But yeah, we'll see. Let's see, no bang towels. Oh yeah, I answered that. There are no robberies, Dan, just close fights and Duran versus Torres. That's right, baby. Duran versus Torres. Never let that one go. Jerry Harper, what's up, Dan? Thought I would dip in here at the end, ready to get your year going right. Literally about to bet my house on Danny Gay. Oh, carefully. Maybe homeless Sunday morning. Well, I hope he comes through for your sake. I'm only betting a unit, man, and only doing it. I don't want to throw my math off because I am going to be trying to actually track both using the Action Network app and then as well as my own spreadsheet tracking. Shout out to my guy TB Scouting from the Chronic Combat Conversations podcast, who you should check out. He's going to help me devise some systems that he uses. But yeah, Jerry Harper. Well, look who Ige is losing to as of late. Yep. No game plan can win. The other fighter is just better sometimes. There's that too, right? How about sometimes just the other fighter is better too, right? Like there's, again, not trying to do the Apu and fucking take bullets or whatever. They're big boys. Eric, Dan, all them, they're in the gym taking harder knocks than anyone like me or you guys can give them online with our opinions. So it's fine. It's all good, folks. But yeah, next fight. I'll build these quick because again I didn't do a tape study on the rest of these. I will obviously be doing Haniel Barcelos plus 165, Umar minus 975, which opens the main card. Smart choice. Bantamweight action. Obviously going to be leaning toward Umar, but I'm going to be looking toward maybe there's a reason to take the underdog. It feels like, you don't have to, you could do blind value in a sprinkle on Ione. I don't think anybody can give you shit at those lines. These are very talented fighters here in the small cage, folks. So that line just seems all sorts of bananas. So I'm looking forward to jumping in that. Maybe there's some kind of contrarian prop. I don't know. Usually things when are that wide, they've been picked apart. It's like there's a party going on and no one wants to miss it, so they just come in like crows and peck everything apart, right? So we'll see. We got Abdul Razak Al Hassan minus 105. Did he open as the favorite? Minus 115 over Claudio Ribeiro. Open minus 105. So it just did a slight flip. Did a complete line flip. Yes, but minus 115, minus 105, complete line flip, which is not a big one. Mateusz Rebecki, one of the only southpaws on here, minus 740 against short notice replacement Nick Fiore, who I believe is from the New England Cartel Fight League. He doesn't have New England Cartel. He doesn't have any UFC fighters / UFC southpaws that he's fought on his record, and the UFC fighters that he trains with in his stable, if I'm thinking of the right guy, means he trains with Cater and Font, who aren't southpaws and don't fight from that stance really often. So that'll be interesting. Javid Bashra, who's listed at orthodox but will go southpaw, is fighting Mateusz Mendoka. Probably mispronounced that. I don't even think or know if that's the original matchup. Does not surprise me to see Javid as a big favorite. He's been really diligent about his trips to Extreme Couture. I've seen him around for sure. Alan Nascimento, big favorite over Carlos Hernandez. I don't know if that's a short notice matchup or not, or they're just lacking flyweights, which often is the case. So you're just going to get some wide matchups here and there. And Nascimento, deceptively experienced, much better than he's been given respect for. So seeing this correction of the steering wheel, perhaps not surprising at all. Maybe even less surprising once I actually look at the tape, Dan. So, yeah, not disagreeing with any of these favorites thus far, but no real strong opinions. Again, folks, as I make my way through here, make sure you check at Dan Tom MMA on Fight Day to see where I end up. Dan Argueta, minus 520 southpaw over fellow southpaw Nick Aguirre. Aguirre, I don't know how to pronounce it. He is stepping in last minute, plus 410 is his number. Southpaw versus southpaw matchup, but neither of them has faced UFC level lefties. Dan Argueta lost to Ricky Turcios, his only other pre-UFC fight from Damon Jackson, who will also switch stances, but neither of those fighters are dedicated southpaws. So again, the southpaw report that I posted at Dan Tom MMA that I will be doing from here on out as well, folks. Really light this week, so not much to garner from that. A fight that I will be looking to jump into, even though I don't have to write it up, is Charles Johnson, minus 350, Jimmy Flick, plus 290. Big line movement, and with everything, with these big lines and big line movement, you can't help. I don't blame anybody for putting on their tinfoil hats going, what's going on here? This is Kraus back in action, or whatever they're saying on these streets these days. But I think it's more of a case of realizing that Jimmy Flick, I bet against him his last one, but I think people are realizing, flying triangles aren't exactly a high percentage path to victory or highly replicable. All respect to Jimmy Flick. Plus, he's coming off of this big layoff. You don't know where he's been. Listen to a great interview, as there are many. No surprise. Shout out to my guy, Aaron Bronstead of the TSN MMA show. Jimmy Flick sounds like he hadn't been training at all. Got up to like 160 pounds, which is, sizable for a flyweight. I'm definitely not hating it and don't have the room to talk. Hitting the beers, not the celebrating any USADAs, things like that. I think people figured out that Charles Johnson, despite taking a fight against a good guy on short notice and being gifted a fight by decision, close fight, but let's be honest, again, I was more, even though I was 30-27 Gordon, I was more sympathetic on round 1 to Patty, even though I felt that was as well the wrong score and not how I scored it live or after the fact. But I did credit it being closer than I thought because of leg kicks, something that is not often credited even by those out there making the arguments, even by those pros taking the seats. You don't hear often arguments for the leg or body sometimes, so from people. So in general, so so it's like, yes, for that round and like 1,000 other rounds, we can genuinely give someone the round credit off their leg kicks. But how many of those rounds that people want off leg kicks do they have their guy like limping and stomping their leg back into working? I don't know, but apparently that was the clearest round that Charles Johnson won against Jalgaz Zhumagulov, who again just has notoriously gets fucked over because he counters and he goes to the body and legs. And he has that Kazakh Jim Norton face where he looks like he's constantly scared because he looks like Jim Norton. You know, referee Tim Mills had that same problem. Go back and watch that R.I.P. Anthony Johnson versus Tommy Spear. UFC Fight Night 13. Take a shot, old school listeners. Replay. Tim Mills. Like, if you have a face like Jim Norton, you just naturally look scared, just like me. If you've got big jowls like fucking Gomi, I can be out of shape right now, or I can be in shape like I was like a month ago, folks, and you can't tell the fucking difference. You know, some people's faces just have a fucking face to it. Some people always look smart when they're stupid. Some people always look stupid when they're maybe not so stupid, right? There is something to that, you know, and again, to the optics of getting flurried on with a high guard when you're actually blocking stuff. Anyways, knowing that, I definitely want to go in to try to cut through. You know, everyone's going one way or the other, or they banana, or they slingshotted one way and or rubber banded the other. You know me, and not some centrist bullshit, but just for the sake of it, I want to try to, want to try to find the center of this pie. So I definitely going to be looking into that fight. But I definitely am not disagreeing with the line movement or the favorite. Do not be surprised to see me pick Charles Johnson, regardless. Priscilla Cachoeira plus 200, Sijara Eubanks minus 240. I haven't looked into this fight. Don't disagree, nor am I surprised with the favorite. Curious where this opened up. Sarge not really too trustworthy. Minus 160, some more money coming in on her. Wow. It feels like it's a dog or pass territory from a betting perspective. And in fact, with Sarge known to get tired, although I believe it's going to be at 135, so she's not cutting the weight, so maybe less of an angle here. But if she gets tired, I don't know, maybe if she gets tired in 135 fights, maybe you sprinkle in like Cachoeira round 3 or round 1 and 3 or something and stay away. I don't know. Probably better staying away. Don't listen to me. I haven't looked into the fight. Who knows what I'll even pick on that one. Again, at Dan Tom MMA on Fight Day. Going to clean up the chat here before we get out of there. Again, thank you again, mixedmartialanalyst.com for secure PayPal links as well as click-throughs for Amazon on it, which we read through earlier. At Dan Tom MMA, as you see on the screen here, 2-4. As far as stop doing the creepy thumb thing, Dan. Just point there. Hitchhike thumb. The ways of the road. At Dan Tom MMA, my link tree, you can find the secure PayPal link there if you want to support this here free show. You can always do the super chats. You can always do the super thanks after the fact, even if you're watching this after it's been broadcasted. Monetized now on the YouTube channel, Daniel Tom MMA, for those of you listening in audio in the future on Apple Podcasts, where 5-star ratings and reviews are very helpful. Again, I'm going to come with the Stitcher and the SoundCloud. I haven't had time for much on the break. It hasn't been much of a break in the MMA space. And again, anybody is good about timestamps, want to educate me on those, and or want to take over converting the Protect Your Neck podcast library to Stitcher and SoundCloud, and want to get actually paid for it, because I would not have it any other way. Hit me up, because I'm getting that desperate at this point. So we're going to clean up the chat before we get out of here and recap our picks and plays. All right. We got Ghost Phantom. Barcelos, very sharp, counter-striking, and good single leg. Could that give Umar some trouble if he goes forward? I think more the counter-striking than the single leg. I mean, not to sound reductive or obvious, but yes, wrestling with that crew, not going to see a lot of success. Using his wrestle to successfully scramble or capitalize on a hurt opponent, though, that's a different story, right? Then it comes in very much handy, but I suggest the counter-striking more so, if I were in the Barcelos corner. Prince of Mischief. Carlston Harris will fight Ramiz Brahimaj at UFC Vegas 69. Thank you for that, Prince of Mischief. I don't know if that's official, but if it is, I'll come back and give you credit. This isn't the show to break news. I'm not known for it, so definitely am not going to take any credit for that or pump that out, but appreciate you sharing if that's true. Jerry Harper, I am playing Flick by round 1 sub. Point 2. That seems like the way to play Flick if you're going to play him, Round 1 sub, you know what I'm saying? And that's another thing, too. Like, if I end up liking that fight, don't be surprised to see something on the round robin. If for whatever reason I like Flick, it's going to be like Flick by sub in that round robin. And if I like Johnson like I think I'm going to like, I'm honestly going to be looking to see if round 2 or round 3 has more quietly of a decent chance than one might think. And maybe that can be the wild big number flyer, because as you can see from the 2/possible 3 options that I teased and we'll recap again here on the show, not very sexy numbers, so I am probably going to need something big and random, right? So James Kendrick, Santino DeFranco said that Sarge gets gassed after her first blast double. Something we should look at. Yeah, I guess you're reading my mind there. It's something that I'm going to be looking at, and I just said, but you definitely are thinking unilaterally to me there down here in the chat if I use the right word correctly. Jerry Harper, I'm a big fan of Basharat. Yeah, me too. Saturday, can you recommend a parlay piece with him you might like? Yeah, I don't know about parlay piece. I mean, yeah, I guess he'd be a decent parlay piece. I haven't looked into any of these other fights, to be honest, man. I wouldn't parlay Imavov. Again, it should be Strickland or pass there, in my opinion. I'm playing Ige and Puna, but those aren't parlays unless you want to parlay them both together, because you'll get a decent number and can do one of those Hawaiian parlay or whatever theme parlays if that's your game. Even I avoided that for what it's worth. Even though I played those gentlemen. Umar, obviously way too high. Yeah, and other than that, you're not really getting trusted name. I guess Alan Nascimento, gun in my head. And then maybe you look at the Charles Johnson and Dan Argueta, because I like Dan Argueta. I just recently watched him against Damon Jackson. I really liked him in a losing effort. Again, he's fighting a guy on short notice who I haven't looked at. But yeah, I would look at those 4 kind of listed in a row there. I think you might be able to dig out some plus money there if that's your thing. Not saying to do it, just saying off the top of my head. We'll see where I end up. I may not end up there, right? You never know. Got to go at Dan Tom in May. How possible is it Ige subs Jackson? It is possible. The fact that Ige could get to his back and it's going to be like the way I see it is either from a body shot early, or if he doesn't knock him out, or maybe he breaks him down, and if he's really winning the wrestling, like a Topuria versus Mitchell, he gets to the back position and either pounds him out or goes for the RNC. Because if you look at his TKOs to his submissions, they all come from that, on the ground at least. Obviously, he's got like standing ones against like Tucker. But they all come from that grounded back mount position. Jackson doesn't give it up easily, but Jackson can be out-wrestled, as we saw with Mirsad Bektic, who isn't a huge back taker, but got to back exposure positions and was able to force back exposure positions. I wouldn't think it's that likely. If you want to take a cheeky stab, I guess I don't blame you. But yeah, feel free to do that. My man Tony, Anthony C. Super. Oh, thank you, sir. Pair character looking himself in the mirror saying, "Thanks for being you," with hearts popping out of his eyes. Aw, thank you, Mr. Tony. I appreciate you, and good luck to you, sir. Another fellow gambling homie out there on the streets who I always am happy when he does well. You were thinking Nascimento too? Hey, great minds think alike there. First .17 flyer on me. Yeah, my man, .17 U flyer. Maybe I should have done that for Puna. I got greedy and I wanted that unit return, so I ended up going with a quarter unit, which is the max you'd want to put on a method round prop anyways. But yeah, you know me. There's going to be some .17s coming out. I'm going to think of you. The first one will be for you, Tony, that we got, for sure. All right, guys, recapping and getting out of here now. All right. Starting from the top. Taking Imavov over Strickland. I feel like it's a dog or pass from a betting perspective. Not very confident in that pick for what it's worth. Taking Ige over Jackson. I know I have bias, but despite my bias, I am playing Ige. I think there's a possible live opportunity. May put the over in a round robin for a chalk anchor, which is not sexy or secure, but hey, those are my thoughts. Punahele Soriano taking Puna over Kopylov. Bias included. Putting my money where my mouth is, putting 1.5 units compared to the 1.25 I did on Ige for minus 125. That's right, 1.55 units, I should say, on Puna's minus 155 for that unit return. Also put the quarter unit that I just talked and teased about on Puna, round 1 KO plus 450. Puna KO, whatever measly plus number I can get it at, will more than likely be in my round robin. As well with Pennington, who I took straight up at plus 105. I'll be taking her over Vieira. I know what I'm getting myself into, but hey, it's so far is it the only dog pick I have? Possibly. We'll see if I like the big dog Barcelos, but probably taking Nurmagomedov over Barcelos. Check at Dan Tom MMA on Fight Day. Check my quick picks and prognostications for a little more on this matchup over at MMAJunkie.com, where you can find my in-depth main event breakdown. We'll probably be taking, I don't know who I'll take in Al Hassan versus Ribeiro. Again, check at Dan Tom MMA on Fight Day. I don't want to mislead you. Probably be taking Rebecki. I liked him, the Southpaw of Contender Series, and his opponent, Nick Fiore. Although I do like his team, New England Cartel. Again, taking this on short notice. We'll probably be taking Basharat against Mendoza. Apologies for mispronouncing the name. We'll most likely be taking Nascimento over Hernandez. Still got to go check there. So again, check with me on Fight Day at Dan Tom MMA for our final picks on this last stretch. Again, probably taking Argueta over the short notice Nick Aguirre. Am I pronouncing it? I don't know, but check me on a Fight Day. Probably taking Charles Johnson, but who knows? Maybe there's Jimmy Flick, and if I do pick Jimmy Flick, don't be surprised to see a sub-flyer, both taking a stab straight up and in the round robin. Or if I end up on Johnson, like I suspect, maybe there's some round 2 or round 3 flyers in that round robin. Who knows? Got to still look into the fight, along with Cachoeira versus Eubanks, which I'm not even going to dare venture a pick. So that's what I got. Best of luck to you in 2023 too, Anthony, Tony, and the rest of y'all. I appreciate you guys so much. Again, at the PYN Podcast on all social platforms. Like, share, follow. I don't pollute it, I promise. At Dan Tom MMA on Twitter is where I'm most active if you want to find me. MixedMartialAnalyst.com, the website, my website that supports this here podcast. You can go there for Amazon or Onnit click-throughs. All you do is click through the link, and through no extra clicks after that, through no cents charged to you extra, whatever you purchase, a small percentage of that purchase will be kicked back to this here program, and it helps a lot. Also on MixedMartialAnalyst.com, you can find secure PayPal link, just like you can find in my link tree at Dan Tom MMA on Twitter, if you want to donate to this free show this way. There's a lot of shadiness out there, folks. A lot of scammers. A lot of people not doing business the right way. I won't always be right. You should never blindly side with me. You should never always agree with me. But what I can guarantee you is I'm going to be as honest as I can. I'm going to work as hard as I can for you, as I've done so. And I've kept that same energy for over half a decade now for free, and will continue to do so. And for that, I am proud. So until next time, protect your neck.